Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whoever and wherever you are. I'm Katie, and this is episode 19 of Art Snaps. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. This is a podcast which celebrates Swindon's collection of modern British art, and every week I choose 3 exciting pieces in the collection to talk about. As the engagement officer for the Art on Tour project at Swindon Museum and Art Gallery, this has been keeping me very entertained during lockdown. And of course, the main aim is to entertain you too. And hopefully you'll learn a little something about the collection along the way. Every week, Art on Tour curates a bit of content around a theme, and this week we're being inspired by water. So in typical Art Snap style, I've chosen 3 fabulous pieces from the collection which include, you guessed it, water. We have some great nautical theme paintings to look at and a gorgeous contemporary Japanese woodblock print to end on. And at that point, hopefully I'll answer your burning question, what is a birthday wave? Which you may have noticed I've alluded to in the title of this podcast. But first we're going to start with Christopher Wood's Still Life with Boats from 1930, which depicts a scene in St Ives where he spent much time throughout his tragically short life and career. In fact, Wood died not long after he painted this, at just 29 years old, so he's often seen as this great figure in British art who never had the chance to reach his full potential. But his unique approach to painting has still been really influential, and Swindon's piece is a great example of his wonderfully naive style. One of the most striking things about Still Life with Boats is its unusual composition. It's kind of like 2 paintings in one, with the seascape in the background, which the horizontal canvas lends itself to really well. But a still life takes up half the space and is pushed right up into the foreground. It's been suggested that it's actually sitting on a windowsill, and the rest is a landscape beyond the window. Which makes sense really, and in that context the odd white shape surrounding the objects could be a rock or cliff of some kind. But Wood has flattened the space, making it all appear closer than it actually is. The still life is made up of a seemingly random set of objects, which don't relate to one another thematically, but are certainly all things which may be found casually resting on a windowsill. The pipe is probably Wood's own pipe, which shows up in a number of his still life paintings, and I like the way its dark grey colouring is repeated in one of the boats in the background. And likewise, the colours of the other objects are repeated in the landscape scene, allowing the eye to move around the painting with ease. But this balancing of colour probably isn't the result of an intellectual endeavour on Wood's part, but rather an effort to reduce and simplify his colour palette to create a more direct and instinctual depiction of the scene. It's all part of Wood's naive style. He doesn't worry about giving us a polished scene or a super accurate representation of the objects within it. There are moments when we see his great skill as a painter, particularly with the jug, as Wood has captured its unusual bulbous shape superbly. But the piece as a whole demonstrates a very simplified approach, which projects a feeling of ease and freedom through painting. The boats in particular are reduced to simple lines and planes of colour, and they call to mind the work of Alfred Wallace, who we looked at in episode 16. Wood admired Wallace greatly for his innocent artistic vision, which was unspoiled by artistic training or a close acquaintance with the art world. And I want to end this one on a quote from Wood which really brings home what he was trying to do through paintings like Still Life with Boats. In a letter to his mother in 1922, he wrote that great modern painters were seeing, quote, through the eyes of the smallest child who sees nothing except those things which would strike him as being most important. Unquote. On that lovely note, let's move on to the next piece for today, one which presents something quite different from Wood's naive vision of the world. John Nash's Bouys at Harwich from 1955 is a watercolour painting, and it depicts a still life of 6 boys on the port of Harwich in Essex, which was where Nash lived after World War II. It's actually one of 2 nautical theme paintings by Nash in the Swindon collection. The other is a much earlier oil painting from 1924, depicting the Bristol docks. I only have time to discuss one of these pieces here, and I chose Buoys at Harwich partly because it's done in watercolour, which feels like a tenuous yet fun link to today's theme, and also because I'm really intrigued by the choice of subject matter and how he's presented it. John Nash is best known for his stark pictures of battlefields painted during the First World War, and after that his beautiful atmospheric landscapes. Now, I'm not a John Nash expert, but this maritime still life feels like quite a unique piece among his work. Just what made him paint this group of boys specifically is a mystery, but there's definitely something quite satisfying about that composition of symmetrical, rounded forms. And I think this is partly because of their pyramid-like formation, which gives the piece structure and stability. These objects, which are normally only partially seen bobbing along the water surface, are pulled out of that context and placed carefully so they have a visual conversation with one another through their shapes, marks and colours. And the crisp, considered way with which it's drawn and painted really shows his skill as a draftsman. And this, along with the clear sense of receding space, with the pier and chimney in the distance, makes this a very different piece from Wood's still life with boats. Where Wood's is direct and instinctual, Nash's painting is carefully thought out and controlled. The final water theme piece I want to talk about today is Nana Shiomi's stunning Japanese woodcut print Wave from 2015. As you can see, it isn't a scene constructed from objects relating to the sea or placed against a maritime backdrop like the other two pieces we've seen today. In fact, what's immediately striking about this piece is the fact that it's quite minimal, with its incredible sense of linear receding space, which kind of suggests headspace in a way. Shiomi doesn't give us too much visual information, so she allows us to contemplate the imagery and project our own experiences onto it. I also love the way that those straight, indefinite lines are offset by the organic movement of the water coming in to the left of the print. And it's interesting that Shiomi has made reference to the direction of the water in the work's title. If you look closely at the piece, you can see that she's put the word left in brackets, and this indicates that there's another version of the print in which the wave comes in from the right. This stems from the artist's fascination with dualistic principles, which come from the fact that the printing plate and the printed image are always opposite from one another, so she often explores this in her work. In Wave, she's created a diptych, which is what we call two images presented next to each other which relate to one another. Normally this involves depicting two scenes of a story, or a continuous scene across two panels. But Shiomi has printed both pieces from the same block in exactly the same way. And by doing this, she's doing two things. First, she's showing us the nature of printmaking, that there's always going to be an ever so slightly different tone or set of marks which are outside of the artist's control, no matter how repetitive the technique. With this piece, the more you look, the more you can see that they are far from the same image. The repeated image also suggests the repetitive motions of waves rising and falling day after day, and explores the symbolic idea that within that eternal repetition, life enters and leaves this world. The dates under each of the prints say 7th of May 1956 and 8th of May 1956, and these refer to the day before Shiomi was born and the day of her birth, again alluding to this idea that one day you're not here and the next day you are, and yet the waves continue the same motion. That brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you discovered something new, and I very much hope you join me again for next week's 20th episode of Art Snaps, which is going to focus on some fabulous drawings from Swindon's collection. Art Snaps are brought to you by Swindon Museum and Art Gallery's engagement project Art on Tour at Home. So for more information about Swindon's art collection, visit the Art on Tour blog, where you'll find cool blog posts, family activities and learning resources, all inspired by Swindon's amazing collection of modern and contemporary British art. All our information is right here on the slide. Please show us you're loving all of this by following us somewhere, whether it's on YouTube, the blog or social media, or just drop us a comment and let us know what you think. That's all from me. Take care, stay well, and bye for now.